What's up, YouTube fam? Welcome back to the channel. This is a special episode because we are doing the first episode of the $100,000 challenge. So at this point, up to date, since starting this account, I have deposited exactly $100,000 into the account. Obviously, right now, we are at 94K or 93.9. So we are down a little bit of money on our investment, right? Since we started this account, we're down about 6%, which, you know, it is what it is. Right now is just a insane time, right? We deposited the money at just arguably the most insane time that we possibly could have. We started this at probably the most bearish time, right? The most toppish signal that we possibly could have started. And now just leads to, where do we go from here, right? Is this the end of the market as we know it? Is this the end of the world as we know it? What the heck is happening? Well, let's get into the charts and let's get into these positions. As you can see, we have a lot of positions. Right now, we are just focused on selling options on just two assets, which is TQQQ and IBIT. The plan is going to be to roll premiums that we collect into one, either other assets or, you know, more shares, maybe even leaps, especially if we keep going down, right? Because, you know, TQQQ maybe isn't the best example since it is leveraged, but IBIT is a great example of a great asset to be selling options on during a bear market. Why? Because it just tracks Bitcoin to an exact. So if you're going to compare that to, you know, ConL, MSTX, or even Coinbase or MSTR, you know, IBIT is much safer. Of course, BitX as well, due to the fact that IBIT has no leverage and it's just tracking Bitcoin. Now, obviously, Bitcoin does get crushed in bear markets. There's no question about that. But, you know, it is still less volatile than trading these 2x ETFs on any of these stocks, first of all. Second of all, you know, I do believe Bitcoin will begin to get less and less volatile over the years as it becomes higher in market cap. So with that being said, let's just pull up the charts, right? So we have two charts. First up is TQQQ. So, you know, I don't love looking at this chart in general just because, you know, it isn't the NASDAQ. It's the leverage version of the NASDAQ. And being that it's the leverage version of the NASDAQ, obviously the chart doesn't always tell the real story. It tells the story for the asset, yes, that we are selling, but I like to look at the NASDAQ more. And, you know, it is very similar, right? It basically looks exactly the same. It's just different on the longer term time frame. So anyway, with that being said, you know, clearly we've had three just straight down bars. So obviously, since it's a 3x leverage, it's down 14% compared to the US 100, which on those same three bars is down about 4.7. So, you know, it's nothing we didn't expect, right? We expected to track at a 3x return. Now, obviously, you know, it has become obvious that when it goes up, it doesn't necessarily go up exactly 3x, but it does go up, you know, relatively equivalent to what you want it to do. Now, with that being said, obviously, in times like this, TQQQ is going to get crushed. And it is getting crushed, and that's partially why our account is getting crushed. Of course, you know, IBIT isn't helping either. But, you know, these are two of the industry-leading assets, right? When you talk about IBIT and you talk about TQQQ, it's like you're talking about one, Bitcoin, which is going to lead, obviously, all of crypto. Now, obviously, you know, IBIT has done a great job of just tracking the Bitcoin chart perfectly, right? Because of the fact that it isn't leveraged. But with that being said, it's still a little scary because of the fact that, you know, again, Bitcoin can go down a lot. Now, with that being said, is it really going down more than individual stocks? No. Obviously, at this point, looking at BitX and ETH, you know, 2x leverage versions of these crypto assets, you see how much more crushed they actually are. You see how much crushed all of these things actually are compared to Bitcoin. The only reason why IBIT is showing a bigger percent is because since IBIT's a stock, as you can see, it gapped. It doesn't have the 24-hour market, so IBIT's only tracking the day. But, you know, when you go and look at the stocks, you know, all of these stocks are crushed, right? Now, when it comes to these individual stocks, you know, if there's one thing I've learned is that you never know when that stock or crypto, right, any individual asset is going to recover. There's really no way to tell 100%, right? Like, obviously, a good example right now would be BABA. BABA is holding up very well at this moment, making BABA something to be interested in purchasing or selling puts against. But look at all this time that passed that BABA was just going down, no movement, and then it just shot up out of nowhere. It didn't go up until January of 2025. But when you look at, you know, let's just say the SPY had been going up since September of 2022. So for 3 years straight, BABA just was not moving or going down while the SPY was going up. So this is the reason why, I decided to go with the larger account, and instead of trying to take these individual stock plays that, would have been getting me crushed way, way more, I decided to go larger, right? This way I can make real money and do it on assets that, I don't know. I won't have to wait years and try to guess when it's going to come back up, when the bear market's going to end. Now, listen, obviously, with the NASDAQ and Bitcoin, you still can't necessarily tell. But at least you're dealing with macroeconomics, right? At least you're dealing with the whole world. If we go and we look at, something like Econoday, which has, all of the world news. Obviously, this type of stuff, I don't necessarily try to read too far into the numbers, right? Obviously, today was consumer confidence. The chart tells the story at the end of the day. And I like the fact, like I said, that when it comes to the TQQQ or when it comes to Bitcoin, I'm not sitting there trying to predict. I'm not sitting there praying. I mean, obviously, I want it to go up, right? I don't want to see this go down. Now, I will say this. I've been eyeing on, let's see, where is it? The Bitcoin futures chart. I had been eyeing this gap for quite a while, which, is always going to be concerning, right? Anytime you see a gap, you can almost guarantee it's going to fill when you look at this chart. So, for quite a while, I had said that we would have to fill this gap. Obviously, I would never know when, right? And I truly believed we would continue up higher. If I knew it was going to be the top, obviously, I wouldn't have even sold IBIT puts. Now, for me, I like the idea of selling these puts because without knowing it's the top, I'm giving myself lots of protection and I'm giving myself time, right? Because at the end of the day, obviously these positions are underwater at the moment, right? And they're getting crushed. There's no way around it. And truthfully, trying to roll this isn't even going to be easy. But, let's just see. So we have the 53 put at $4.28. We really can't even roll down if we go to next week. If we go 2 weeks out, at this moment, we could probably go, down 50 cents, right? So the rolling is not very attractive at the moment. But the market is going to have to bounce eventually, right? And when it does bounce, then rolling will get much more attractive. So right now, yes, it is tough to roll due to the fact that, the market just keeps going straight down. So, the good part is that we have till Friday to decide because all of these options expire Friday. And assuming we do get a bounce by then, we will get to roll. Now, if we don't get a bounce by then, then I don't have to worry again because I can go a month out, 2 months out. I don't mind since it's IBIT, right? It's BlackRock and it's Bitcoin. Since it's TQQQ, it's the NASDAQ leveraged. Yes, it's going to be a little more scary, but this is an asset that has been around for 15 years. It's been around since 2010 and, it's had its moments. Ultimately, it has shown that it is something that's here to stay. It's not something I'm necessarily worried about losing all of my money on. Obviously, it can keep going down. It can, be a long time, right? It could be months. It could even be years, right? But in the end of the day, that's what option selling is about. Option selling is about building your portfolio, creating cash that you could use on the side for either other positions or scaling back into your positions or just using to pay bills, right? And create your life. Now, for me, I like to roll because at the end of the day, I'd rather have a lower entry. Obviously, when you sell puts, assuming I didn't roll, I would just collect all of this premium, which, obviously it's a lot of, I can't even count how much it actually is, but, I would collect all of the premium, or better yet, not all of the premium you see there, but I would collect all of the premium from the average credit, right? It's a couple $1,000s, and ultimately that would go into my buying power. But I personally would rather roll lower because as much as a couple thousand is great, obviously you guys see how quickly we can be down 5,000-6,000 with trading TQQQ and IBIT. Now again, maybe I have balls of steel compared to you. Maybe this isn't a strategy that's meant for you, but for me, I come from a place of having large amounts in crypto, in altcoins, and other much riskier assets that selling puts on IBIT and TQQQ to me is almost like a walk in the park. Like obviously days like today are not fun. I'm not enjoying it. I don't, enjoy it at all. But it's part of the game and you have to be able to survive it, right? And this is how, in my opinion, there's not really much better options because, how else are you going to sell options on Bitcoin, right? Especially without leverage. And ultimately, yes, we can sell options on technically the NASDAQ, but what am I going to buy one, or sell one contract compared to being able to sell, 5, 6, 7 contracts on TQQQ? Now, obviously, this leap isn't a great position, but now we have this call that we sold that has been producing money. So it's like, I don't even know how much we're up on these calls that we sold. I think a couple hundred. And then when you look at this leap, it's like, all right, we're down 700, but we still have 2 years until it expires. And we've already made back, maybe not half of what we're down, but a good amount. So overall, I'm not at all worried. And that's really what it comes down to, right? People love to talk about strategies. Yes, there's tons of strategies, infinite strategies. But when it comes to selling options, selling puts and selling calls on a stock that you can trust is the number one strategy, right? Obviously, wheeling is amazing too. But in my case, rolling lower and then eventually wheeling. Eventually, I do want to get assigned all of these shares because that is what's going to make us grow the fastest. But, as long as we're in what I would call a torrential downpour and just going straight down, it's like I would rather just continue to roll because at the end of the day, do I want to get assigned shares at 85, 83 when I can continue to lower my price and lower my price? And then, when I feel as if we've bottomed out. Now, in this case, listen, there's a lot that can happen. I don't even, this is the entry for my leap. So let's just remove this. In the end of the day, there's a lot that can happen, right? It could sweep this low. It can hold here for a demand. It can, in the end of the day, right, the market is all supply and demand. So it's like we can draw up infinite of these zones. And it's like in terms of which zones are going to hold and which ones are going to go through, you never know, right? Like, truth be told, this is why, again, I like to trade macroeconomic type stocks like IBIT or TQQQ because, it'll eventually find demand and it'll go back up, right? When it comes to an individual stock, there's just no way to know when its time is going to come. BABA, again, is a clear example. But, all these people who like to be these professional traders, at the end of the day, they're just drawing things on a chart and taking guesses, right? And obviously, yes, you can have a strategy where mathematics plays in your favor. And that's where selling options comes in, is I believe selling options is the ultimate strategy where mathematics will always play in your favor as long as it's the correct asset. And that's what we're doing here. So, yeah, we might be down a lot on a day like today, but there's nothing to really worry about because, unless you are shorting the market, there's really no portfolio you're going to have that isn't down. And, history shows that being a bull is, the brighter choice, whether it's Bitcoin or the NASDAQ. So not the best start to us putting a lot more money into our account. Obviously, if I had that magic crystal ball, I would have either held off or kept it in cash, but I don't, which is why I go straight into selling puts. I roll lower until I can't, or I get assigned and run the wheel. That is how, you can manage a market without trying to predict it, without having to be up before open and draw a bunch of lines and, figure out what's going on that day. In the end of the day, I'm trading from a macroeconomic standpoint, a long-term horizon. My plan is to collect a couple thousand of premium every single week. Obviously, rolling will get in the way of that, but that couple thousand, I'm willing to sacrifice it to save, thousands of dollars, right? Because again, as much as buying at 52.5, 50, 53.5, 53 on IBIT is great, if IBIT's going to go to the 40s or low 40s, I'd rather roll a little lower, save myself some money. So, that's the cool part about option selling, right? You're either collecting premium and making money or you're doing things to save money. But as long as it's an asset is not going to go bust, which, listen, I'm willing to put my trust in Bitcoin and BlackRock. Because that's what IBIT is. IBIT is a BlackRock ETF. I don't know if it shows that here. But BlackRock owns majority of shares of pretty much every major company. They literally run the world. So there's no one that I'm going to trust more, in the end of the day, than those two assets, Bitcoin and BlackRock. In the end of the day, it's a lot bigger than myself. That's what you are doing when you're involved in the market, right? You're investing in things bigger than yourself. And that's what it comes down to, is believing in your investments. It's not easy to truly believe in your investments, but ultimately, that's the secret to selling options and being okay and not losing your mind during times like this. So I hope you guys are okay. Take your mental health serious, right? Walk away from the charts, go to the park. At the end of the day, it's just numbers on a screen. I get it, right? It's real money, and that money ensures your financial education, or financial security, financial freedom. But again, if it's stuff that will eventually go back up, and really, again, there's not really many things that you can guarantee will go back up, right? There's the Mag 7 stocks the NASDAQ, Bitcoin. If you're in things that, maybe are a little riskier and you got caught, it's okay. I've been there too. I was there literally last week. Go back to this channel, look at my Connell position, which, as much as Connell was a terrible position, right, we also got out here, and look how much it's gone down since. So that alone needs to be, a lesson for not just you, but for all of us, right? Or not just me, but for all of us. Like, just because you're in a position that's underwater doesn't mean you should stay in that position forever. And luckily, I pulled the trigger and saved myself 40%, 35%. So, I'm not telling you to panic sell if you're in some bad assets. I have a buddy of mine who, bought, some options on HIMS, and, on this day or this day was texting me how much his portfolio was up. Now that position's down 50%. So, there's a lot going on in the world right now. There's a lot of people who are just taking crazy plays, buying options on stocks that were ripping due to hype, due to media. Now, obviously, yes, HIMS might have good financials, but that doesn't mean it should have ran even a fraction of what it did. And ultimately, everything is always going to be going back to its fair price, right? Ultimately, the market is always going to humble and bring everything back to reality eventually. So I hope you learned a lot from this video. I hope you're doing okay. Just know, like I said, we are going to be okay. We are going to make it. I'll continue to be posting content, and I will see you guys in the next one.